A woman appeared in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom and immediately began behaving disrespectfully towards him. The woman said, "I will not pay the fine, do whatever you want." The judge responded that they would provide her with a payment plan. This would make it easier for her to pay the fine, but the woman's attitude was quite rude, and she said, "Do whatever you want, I won't pay anyway." Judge Frank Caprio, who is renowned worldwide for his exceptional empathy and unwavering kindness, became visibly angry in the courtroom for the very first time. Although this particular court proceeding was not published in any official records or media outlets, Frank Caprio did mention it within his published book. And what happened next changed Frank Caprio's life forever. Viewers, who would have thought that a child who polishes people's shoes on his way to school would one day become the world's most narcissistic judge? Watching Frank Caprio's courtroom proceedings makes it quite difficult to imagine how many deep wounds are hidden behind this smiling face. Behind the facade of mercy and compassion, how many deep wounds are hidden? Frank Caprio was the chief judge of the Municipal Court of Providence, Rhode Island. He served as a judge from 1985 to 2023, continuously for 38 years, fulfilling the duty of justice in this position. Indeed, their recognition was built from a reality TV show, Court in Providence. Their court used to receive cases related to traffic violations. Frank Caprio always joked about the defendants in all his cases, whether they were charged with illegal parking, speeding, or running red lights, and tried to settle them by waiving fines. Sometimes he would come with the defendants and have the children run laps, and a humorous atmosphere would be created in the courtroom. Sometimes he would even hug the defendants to share their sorrows and pains. On a particular day, 90 elderly individuals unexpectedly came to their local court, each being formally accused of overspeeding within school zones. When the judge asked them why they were overspeeding, the elderly man's eyes welled up. He said that he was taking his 63 son to the hospital because he has blood cancer. Frank Caprio, without wasting any time, waved it away and dismissed the case without imposing a fine. His cheerful demeanor was appreciated not only in America, but also around the world. His contributions have been widely appreciated, and even judges from other countries have recognized him personally as their ideal candidate. But behind this radiant, ever-present smiling face lies a deeply painful and tragic story that ultimately brought him to a position he had never even imagined possible before. After their retirement in 2023, they were diagnosed with cancer, and during that time they began to write their book, Compassion in the Coat. Published during the same calendar year of 2025, there exists an intriguing and noteworthy incident that sheds light on the complex behavior exhibited by Judge Frank Caprio, which happened with their grandparents. Their grandparents were completely powerless when they migrated from Italy to Providence. Living in the city, their conditions were so dire that their grandfather had to make a living by running a fruit cart every single day. One day, they and their friends got drunk and caused a ruckus, and were arrested by the police. Frank Caprio's grandmother took money on credit from Paduos and went to court. In a desperate attempt to secure her husband's release, she offered a sum of money to the judge publicly, using only gestures and broken English to communicate her heartfelt plea. At that time, their young son Tip was with her, who knew a little English. The judge called Tip to his side and said that when Tip told his mother, "Take your parents home, they have been released," she returned to praying diligently to the judge, earnestly hoping for their safety and enduring peace. This little boy was no one else but actually the father of Judge Frank Caprio, who was lovingly called Tip by everyone. Frank Caprio says that undoubtedly this case happened long before my birth, but upon hearing the story of this judge's behavior, even today, whenever I see new immigrants settling and thriving in my neighborhood, it constantly reminds me of my grandparents' experiences. And I do my best to ensure they do not suffer any hardships. Frank Caprio's father's real name was Antonio Caprio Jr., but everyone used to call him Tip. When Frank Caprio's father came to America, they lived in a one-room flat. Where there was not even hot water, 12 people lived in one room, and only the light of a lamp kept them going. He had to drop out of school during classes and began to help his father, Frank's grandfather, in managing the family's expenses. The family's circumstances were so bad that often cotton would accumulate in an empty pocket. But Frank Caprio wrote in his detailed report that he absolutely didn't even have that cotton in his pockets. On November 24th, 1936, Frank's son Prio was born, and he happily lived with his devoted father. Tip and Mother Philomena lived in a house with the same cold water and a single room. If they ever needed to take a shower, they had to go several kilometers away. Their father, Tip, made numerous attempts to establish several market stalls, but unfortunately, because of the severe Great Depression, none of his businesses ever succeeded. Eventually, he got a job in milk distribution. From a young age, Frank Caprio also began helping him. Once, when Frank was 8 years old, he had to deliver milk to a house. This house belonged to a wealthy man whose son was Frank's schoolmate. Early in the morning, on an empty stomach, when Frank Caprio knocked on that house's door, a strong aroma of toast started coming from inside. When the door opened, his schoolmate was inside sitting at the breakfast table crying. Frank thought that perhaps he would be invited inside for breakfast. But instead, at that moment, he was being scolded by his own father. His father pointed to his crying son. While pointing directly to Frank, he sternly said, "Be grateful that you are fortunate. Otherwise, you would be desperately milking milk in the freezing snow like that unfortunate boy." At a young age, Frank Caprio was profoundly hurt by this incident, to such an extent that many years later, he chose to write the exact words verbatim in his personal memoir book. But there was one thing. Frank Caprio indeed spent his childhood in very difficult conditions, but he was very happy because he received that kind of upbringing. The conditions were so bad that on winter nights he didn't even have a blanket. The milk company provided only one blanket, and it was placed on the milk so that it wouldn't freeze. At night, Frank Caprio and his brother shared that same blanket. Now, because the milk's cream used to collect on that blanket, a rat would come to the store every single day specifically to eat that cream, and as a result, Frank Caprio was very scared. At 16 years old, one day Frank Caprio's father placed his hand on his shoulder and said, "You will become a lawyer one day. But remember this, do not charge fees from the poor." At that time, Frank was studying in high school, and to make ends meet, he did many part-time jobs, working as a milk delivery man with his father, distributing newspapers, working at a bowling alley screwing pins, working as a waiter in a restaurant, and even sitting on the roadside shouting to people. They took careful steps to manage their expenses, and after graduating from high school, he obtained admission to a respected college located in Providence itself. In those times, reaching college was a significant achievement for poor families. Among their 45 cousins, Frank Caprio was the second to reach college. In their final year of college, they achieved a substantial boost, successfully fulfilling the dream they had long aspired to attain. But studying at this university meant they would have to give up all their part-time jobs, and if they had to do so, then how would they make a living? They were accepted into this highly regarded university, but Frank clearly understood that his parents would not have the necessary funds to afford the significant expenses associated with attending. Therefore, instead of attending their preferred university, they took up a teaching job during the day and began studying law at another university at night. During this time, another incident occurred with Frank Caprio, the sorrow of which he could never forget for the rest of his life. One day, on returning from law college, one of his classmates gave him a lift home. Frank lived in a clipboard apartment, which looked very dilapidated from the outside. Frank's classmate, upon first seeing the interior and exterior of his home, thoughtfully remarked, "If you genuinely want to become a successful lawyer, you simply cannot be living in a house like this." At that exact moment during the event, Frank felt extremely bad inside himself, but he quietly said thank you without responding and walked away. But he could never forget this incident for the rest of his life. After becoming a lawyer, he also stepped into politics. And once, he also stood in the Attorney General elections, but the opposition party, by making false accusations of organized crime against him, eliminated him. After that, he returned to practicing his law. One day, Frank Caprio was having lunch when suddenly he received a call from the city's mayor. They informed Frank that one of Providence's 3 municipal court judges has been transferred and now a seat has become vacant. In that particular moment, Frank found himself completely unable to comprehend the underlying reasons why Mia had chosen to share this specific information with him at that very exact time. At that very moment, Mia confidently said to Frank, "I think you would be absolutely perfect for this position." And Frank realized he had never witnessed a more completely joyful moment before. This event was not only organized for Frank, but also included his parents, as Frank Caprio had previously earned the title of a wrestling champion, highlighting his achievements in the sport. And whenever they had a match, his father Tip was always present to watch. Similarly, when Frank became a judge on the first day, Tip was also there to watch his court The first case in the ongoing legal proceedings involved a woman who had accumulated several $100s in parking tickets due to multiple parking violations. Upon arrival, she began to behave disrespectfully towards Judge Frank Caprio. She said, "I will not pay this fine. I have children and I have to bear their expenses," she said. Judge Frank Caprio put her on a payment plan, meaning she could now pay in installments. But the woman was very stubborn and said, "Whatever you do, I will not pay." On the first day, Judge Frank Caprio got angry and they booted his car and dismissed the case. That means his car won't run until the fine is paid. After the Hoji court session, Tip severely scolded Frank, saying that the woman would now have to leave her children at school or go grocery shopping. From the very first day, Tip was angry and he was not happy. This day proved to be a turning point in Frank Caprio's life. After that, he decided that if a verdict has to be given against any defendant, then they will first understand what effect this decision will have on their families. He said that his father's scolding taught them what they could not learn even in 5 years at law college. After that, Judge Frank Caprio established a donation fund, which he named after his mother, the Philomena Fund. This fund helps those in need who cannot afford fines. Judge Frank Caprio became famous through a TV program called Court in Providence. The story behind it is that the judge's brother, Joe, he was very passionate about video shooting, constantly seeking to refine his techniques and enhance his creative vision. He made videos of various subjects, always in search of capturing a good and memorable scene. One day someone gave him the idea to record the courtroom proceedings. Judge Frank Caprio was very opposed to this idea, but whoever managed to persuade them by any means. The show was named Court in Providence, which was aired on local cable TV. Because he was a judge, Frank Caprio couldn't charge any fees in return. Initially, this show only aired on local TV, but after the arrival of social media, copies of it were also uploaded onto the internet, and now these legal proceedings have officially begun to be viewed by the public worldwide. In this way, Judge Caprio, through his compassion and empathy, not only among the people of Providence but for the whole world, in the role of a narcissist judge, after diligently and effectively holding the esteemed position for a remarkable 38 years, in January 2023, Judge Frank Caprio ultimately resigned. After a few months had passed, he made a public announcement to the world that he was bravely fighting against a disease like cancer. On August 20th, 2025, he was seen lying on a hospital bed, and in the video, he was appealing sincerely to his loyal fans for prayers and support during his challenging recovery. On the very next day, August 21st, 2020, he departed permanently from this world forever, leaving behind cherished memories and loved ones. Behind him, he left enduring memories of the courtroom that continuously teach us valuable lessons in empathy, kindness, and justice, as well as the crucial skill of controlling anger. We sincerely hope that you enjoy watching this video and kindly take the time to like and share it with your friends and family members. Thank you very much for your loving and supportive comments. See you all very soon in the next amazing video.